Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man. I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gonna teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Mike is still out on assignment as well as myself. But with that being said, welcome to episode 603 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show that's covering the sporting HBCU diaspora, all things HBCU sports, from institutions large and small, from the NEIA to the NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Charles Bishop, as Mike Washington is out on assignment from our home studios, sending a signal live. The KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, multi-Hall of Famer Ralph Cooper, the beautiful home of Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. We also have none other than A.D. Drew, as he is flexible with his time and flexing, as I should say, appropriately, as he's getting ready to do a basketball game. And we'll make sure that he can do that as we plan to end the show right as the game begins. We might even get a little cheat time and get a chance to get first bucket or basket or so. That being said, make A.D. Drew do a call of a game, trying his skills a little bit on this side as well. Charles, we'll sneak in there and give you a chance to do a report. Now, you're going to have to find a way to do it based on the data in terms of statistics, because you're not there, but it doesn't mean that I hadn't seen you find a way to get it done. Anyway, with that being said, we have a unique show today. We're going to kind of go back and look at it. You know, Dr. Cavil runs his data. Drew has a magical database as well, but we have ours with Dr. Cavil. We're going to review our data. You know, we announced on Sunday the last poll ranking for the major division and crowned a national champion, Jackson State. And then on Tuesday, we got a chance to do a little bit of a grade analysis on those top 7 at the end of the show in terms of what took place. Charles showed out and in terms of his skill sets, in terms of those F squares. I was like, man, he does a little bit too much on the grading, but we'll let him have that in terms of his midterm grades. If I get any calls from the provost's office, I'll let him know. A.D. Drew was solid. He at least gave really good reasons in terms of why he was giving grades, and he even came up with the fact that he gave an I for incomplete after a person had a C grade through part of the season in terms of some injuries, and he just gave him an I. I was like, all right, I can take that. It is real. But with that being said, we're going to break down and see from the preseason to the postseason. We're going to look at all 21 and see where they were, and then get some analysis based on obviously who's up, who's down, who was able to pretty much stay where we thought they were, which could be good or bad, because you could be at the bottom and stayed at the bottom, which wouldn't be good. Or you could be at the top, stayed at the top, which certainly would be good. And then you have those that fluctuated. Who had the highest jump? Who had the biggest fall? We'll look at some things like that and correlate it in terms of the end semester and see who has to retake the class and who maybe even clept out in terms of the final exam, did so well that they're looking to run it back next year. That being said, let's start it off. Let's get into it. As we say, today's episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. With that being said, Charles, what's some news of the day? What's on your mind
Well, let's start things off. Let's take a look at the class of 2025 Black College Hall of Fame. They announced their 16th class on yesterday. 6 inductees were selected from a list of 28 finalists who had been determined earlier by Black College Football Hall of Fame Selection Committee. So here they are. Black College Hall of Fame class of 2025 includes Henry Dyer from Grambling State, Rasheed Mathis from Bethune-Cookman University, Jaquay Nunley from Florida A&M University, Dominique Rogers-Cromartie from Tennessee State University, Jay Skywalker from Howard University, and Coach Fred Poplong from Wiley College. And this is a statement from Doug Williams. What we have with the class of 2025 is an incredible showcase of the talent that has come from historically Black colleges and universities over the years. So when the Black College Hall of Fame was established, its purpose was to do just this, elevating and recognizing the past, present, and future of Black college football. Congratulations to the class of 2025. So those are your 2025 Black College Hall of Fame selectees.
So you have 6 inductees who were selected from the list of 28 finalists who had been determined by the earliest Black College Football Hall of Fame Selection Committee, which comprises 9 members, prominent journalists, commentators, historians, as well as former NFL general managers and executives from the members of the Black College Football Hall of Fame to determine these inductees. So you have also the head coach, Coach Fred Pop Long. Fascinating when you think of Fred Pop. You know, we do the Big Ben HBCU Football Award, which is named after Ben Cavil, as they like to say. That's the Sedity side of the family associated with Ben Cavil. We say Cavil on this side. You know, they were out there in the house. You know, some of us had to be in the field. So, you know, you got to say a little different when you're in the house, I guess. I don't know what that's all about, but we'll talk about that later. But, you know, when I do the show from the office, I have the pinup, if you would, from when we did a live induction ceremony for the HBCU Football Player of the Year, Ben L. Cavil Senior Award, who is named in honor of Ben L. Cavil for a football player that has a connection with Texas and HBCUs. And we'll do that this year as well. But the coach of the team that Ben L. Cavil played for was Wiley College, now Wiley University. And his head coach was Coach Fred Pop Long that just got in the Black College Hall of Fame. So that was really cool to see that announcement, and gives me a little impetus, and maybe there is some hope that we can push forward to see about getting Ben L. Cavil his rightful dues of getting in the Black College Football Hall of Fame. Obviously, a lot of more modern athletes certainly have the need to get in there, but it's important to kind of connect that history, and so I'm glad they did it in terms of the football coach, in terms of bringing him posthumously in, and maybe one of his great players, particularly early on, from the time that they dominated SWAC football with 5 championships in SWAC, 2 Black College national championships, one they shared, and Ben L. Cavil, All-American at the time, won the first team, and the other time a second team player in 1925 period when he played for Wiley University. But it was noticeable, as you said, with the players, Henry Dyer, Rashawn Mathis, Jaquan Nunley, Dominique Rogers-Cromartie, and Jay Skywalker, 6 other players inducted there. Let me get your thoughts on that, Drew, in terms of these honorees. Any thoughts on this class more than anything?
I hope my audio is good for you guys. I am in the gym, so it is kind of loud in here. How's my audio?
You're good. Keep going.
Okay. As far as this class, obviously with one of the Rack boys going into the Hall of Fame, being Jaquay Nunley from Florida A&M, a lot of people don't realize how good those receivers were on that team, because with today's pass-happy offenses, some of those numbers are being surpassed, and then especially because people are getting that COVID year, 5 years, in order to do the numbers that a lot of those guys got in 3 years at Florida A&M. Jaquay was one of the few who actually started for a majority of the 4 seasons he was at Florida A&M. So I'm very happy that that he made it into the Hall of Fame. I mean, wait a minute, let me look at Henry Drive, Rashad Mathis,
Yeah,
what a great
he was
standout.
a fun one to watch. Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely right.
yes, he was. But I don't know who was better to watch though, him or Dominic Rogers Cromartie.
Yeah, he's
You
a good
know,
one. He's a good one
he
too.
did his thing. He did his thing too. But I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this for last. Pop Long is good. It's good to see them reach back into history
Yeah.
for programs that no longer sponsor football, and don't forget about those
Yeah,
programs because there are plenty of HBCUs who pre-World War II and even up to the late '60s and into the '70s still sponsor football, a la Maryland Eastern Shore. And it's nice to see them go back and not forget about those programs. And for J. Scott Walker, you know, people don't realize how good Jay Walker was as a quarterback. And as much crap as we give him for being a Howard Homer when he's on the broadcast, the the man played ball. The man put a couple of L's on FAMU. I can't speak for no other team that was in the MEAC at that point in time. But I know
A&T as well. He put them A&T. He got their number. I know
yeah.
that.
He put some L's on FAMU. So, congratulations to Jay. Next time I see him at one of these events, I'm gonna have to get him an extra cigar, just because he's a Hall of Famer now, and make him sign HOF next to something for me, just so I could go and sell it on eBay.
Good stuff. Good stuff. The other thing, a lot of ways, many of these players that were nominated is pretty cool. They're of the younger class, if you allow me to use that framework. There are many folks that not only did we read about, saw. Many of these are guys that kind of saw at the time we were in college, or right before that, or right after that. So that's probably cool too, that you got a relatively young class that's going in that you don't always see, particularly as a group. That's really nice. Many of them obviously were successful, or at least got a stint at the NFL as well. So pretty cool with that. I'm gonna stay with you, or I'm gonna go back to you, Charles. What other news you want to get on the table?
Yeah, let's take a look at this. Jackson State's Robert Brazile and Walter Payton were named to the East-West Shrine All-Century team. Jackson State's Robert Brazile and Walter Payton were named this past Tuesday morning, with the team unveiling at the College Football Hall of Fame. The duo played together at Jackson State and led the Tigers to the 1972 and 1973 SWAC championships before becoming NFL Hall of Famers. Robert Brazile was named a Sheridan Black College All-American in 1974. He was also All-SWAC 1974 and played in the Senior Bowl the same year. He set a record at Jackson State with 129 solo tackles and led the conference, get this, with 9 interceptions after moving from tight end to linebacker in 1972. And then, of course, we know about Walter Payton. He led Jackson State in 9 categories, with many still standing during his career. Finished his career with 3,500 yards, 6.1 yards per carry, 65 rushing touchdowns, 464 career points. He still also holds the school record with 24 rushing touchdowns in a single season. So great in terms of Robert Brazile and Walter Payton being named to the East-West Shrine All-Century team.
Rest in power. In terms of Walter Payton, I got a chance while I was up in Jackson as they took care of me. I switched back a little bit, but I plan to come back to the Jackson State team. But it was a little cool, so I had to switch it up. I left this one at the other one at school, oddly enough. With that being said, I got a chance to get the Walter Payton official gear when we was in the bookstore. That was pretty cool. I got me a cap, and I got me also a shirt that I'll proudly wear. And what was really nice to see with Brazile, obviously he was really a supporter of Coach Prime in terms of connecting the old with the new and giving him a lot of autonomy and history associated with Jackson State to make that move for Coach Prime so much smoother. He was there in terms of those big-time games, Celebration Bowl. And so he saw the pain and how much he wanted to see Jackson State, for all the fan, the love that he saw and always received. He wanted the fans to get a chance to do that. And obviously he got a chance for his third SWAC championship in 3-4 years, but he went back, saw him in the crowd around very easygoing. Everybody can talk to him, and so many people show him love, rightfully so. Not just Jackson State, but HBCU fans in general. But the fact that I got to see him post with the confetti out there, not only with so many coaches and players, fans, media folks that are connected with Jackson State that had rightfully at that time had a chance to kind of celebrate a little bit too. It was really good to see him be able to have a huge smile on his face to kind of get that box checked off as everything is not promised, but he got to see that. That was a good thing to see. And now we got him as part, rightfully so, as part of the East-West Shrine All-Century team. Boy, that was nice makeup right there. With that being said, AD Drew, anything else you want to share? What's on your mind in terms of the news of the day?
Yeah, since we're talking about Hall of Fame, Dr. Cavil, I don't think we covered the CIAA Hall of Fame.
No, it just came out. That's correct.
All right. I just saw the spot. The CIAA is proud to announce the 2025 John B. McClendon Hall of Fame class. The CIAA Hall of Fame class is set to be enshrined February 28th, 2025. I believe that is going to be during the basketball tournament in Baltimore, Maryland. Yep. The event will be part of a week-long event encompassing the CIAA basketball tournament. The newest members of the class were chosen from a list of nominees that were submitted by their respective institutions. Those names include Bowie State's Arlene Creek, Shaw's Parisha Curtis, Virginia Union's Sherman Lee, Virginia State's Samantha Mackey Edwards, Central's Kyle Serba, and Winston-Salem State's Sharon Tanner. Just a quick Arlene Creek for Bowie State was a women's basketball coach. Carisha Turner from Shaw was a women's basketball player. Kyle Serber from Central is an administrator. Inez Turner from Fayetteville State was a track and field coach. Sharon Holloway Tanner was a women's basketball player. And Samantha Mackey Edwards was a track and field student athlete. And you can go, obviously, to the CIAA website and read more about each of those players' bios.
Good stuff. Well, dude, anytime you have a Hall of Fame named after John B. McClendon Jr., you're doing something special. And you get your name associated with your CIAA Hall named after him. That's big time. That is big time, big time. With that being said, let's take our first break and come back on the other side. Get a chance to kind of break down. I want to really get your thoughts in terms of the projections, in terms of preseason, and what happened postseason. This what happened then, as they say, and this is what happened now. We'll kind of see where they landed, how much of the projection was on spot and how much was not. With that being said, we'll be right back after this first break. This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavil of Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, trying to get down. It's like a loop machine.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Looking for the ultimate cultural experience of 2025? The Zora Outdoor Festival of the Arts is where you need to be. From January 31st to February 2nd, Eatonville, Florida will come alive with incredible live performances from the Levert Experience and the Bar Cave. Immerse yourself in interactive art. Shop from over 80 vendors. Take a journey through history with a new virtual tour app. And enjoy family-friendly STEM activities. Plus, don't miss the unforgettable R&B tribute to the legends, honoring talents such as Whitney Houston, Marvin Gaye, and Luther Vandross. This is more than a festival. It's a celebration of Eatonville's rich cultural heritage. Visit zorafestival.org for tickets.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike Washington's out on assignment. We have one of the best pinch hitters in the game. That's AD Drew. He's doing a little double duty. So if you see him having to kind of navigate the space, you understand why. He is prepping and making sure he gets ready, as there is a basketball game to be played in the SIC. With that being said, let me just go down the list.
Speaking of Dr. Cavil, don't forget the Chris Paul Classic is on tonight also. I believe it's going on right now on one of the ESPN channels. I can't remember. I think it's either the Deuce or the U.
All right,
Alabama State and Norfolk was tip off first.
Big stuff, big stuff. Make sure we get some score updates. That should be a pretty good matchup. Alabama State has had some solid wins. Norfolk State continues to do what they do, so you would have to believe that Norfolk State obviously would be the betting edge. But it'd be fascinating to kind of see. You know how I love those MEAC/SWAC challenges, if we borrow the phrase from the official MEAC/SWAC challenge on the football side. Now we get one on the basketball side, as led by the executive director, John Grant, of both the MEAC/SWAC Challenge and Celebration Bowl. But with that being said, we'll go down the list. I'll just go through the whole list, top seven. We'll see where we are, and then we'll decide whether we need to take a break or get into discussions. But let me break it down, starting with number 21. 21 on this list is Delaware State. Delaware State Hornets came into the season in terms of the power ranking at 21. And for them, unfortunately, I would say they end at 21. Let's stay at 21, so break it down. They went 1-10, 0-5 in 2023. They had an extra game this year, and so they did get the one victory after all those losses. This was a Division I win, unlike the one in 2023. But they had 11 losses and were 0-5 in the conference race. They dismissed the coach. Some people thought it was maybe a little premature. May not quite been just because of record, obviously, there, but they were 21. Let's get into number 20. As you just saw, North Carolina A&T Aggies. This is a rich program, particularly most recently. They have hit hard times. They went 1-10. They were 0-8 in 2023. They were also ranked 20 coming into the season. In 2024, I should say, similar to Delaware State, they added a loss. They went 1-11, 0-8. Unlike in 2023 with the Division I win, this win was not even against a Division I FCS opponent. It was against Division II, and it was one where Winston-Salem State still believes they had every reason to get that dub. Well, the record shows that they did get it, but they at 0-8 overall. Getting us to number 19. We see a reframe there. Well, guess what? Mississippi Valley State Delta Devils, 1-10, 1-7. Hey, they got a conference victory. That conference victory was huge. This shocked the HBCU landscape on this side. And Drew is still trying to figure out, as he went off on it a little bit on Tuesday. Sorry, Drew, got to revisit 1-7 in conference playoff. Victory was against Florida A&M, FAMU. They went 1-11 as they added a game, 12-game season, and they stay at 19. Next, let's get into 18. With 18, we have Bethune-Cookman. This is where we see a little bit of fluctuation. Bethune-Cookman came in thinking that they would be right on the clips of that second middle division. If you break it down in 7 apiece, there's 3 areas, if you would, a third and a third and a third. So that second quadrant, but they fall to actually the third quadrant. They were 3-8, 2-6. 2023, they did get 3 wins. They had the loss, Division II loss to Clark Atlanta. Clark Atlanta was hot, so a little something there. They were 2-6 again in conference play with 105 points. But you see that they fell 4 spots in terms of what we were predicting them to do, or the rankings did. They were not able to achieve that. Let's get into number 17. Number 17, you have Arkansas Pine Bluff, the Golden Lions. A lot of folks outside of us thought they may take the next step. They did get an additional victory. They were 2-9 overall last year coming in the season, where they were ranked 18. So they actually improved a little bit, 17 ranking. Not much to write home about, but it is a point. 3-9 in terms of what they did this year, 2-6. 2024 in terms of that rank. Let's get into number 16. Howard Bison, how the mighty have fallen. While they just had a fun 500 record, they did go 4-1 in the conference last year with the key victory that gave them the nod to go to the Celebration Bowl, where they played a great game, where FAMU had to literally come back at the end of the game. FAMU was favored in that matchup, but they gave them a huge scare. Which would have been interesting for all the talk in terms of Celebration Bowl naming them the champions, but other folks probably would have had some different opinions. We ended up probably would have split championship. Not to be FAMU won it, so we had a unanimous champion. But they failed to 4-8 this year and flipped what they did in conference play. They went from 4-1 last year to 1-4 in 2024. They came in the season with a lot of energy. Had them ranked as high as 4. So they failed 12 spots, Charles. This might be the biggest fall of the year. So we get a chance to kind of discuss that. The last one we'll discuss in this segment, if you would, be number 15. 15 is the Norfolk State Spartans. They were 3-8 last year, 1-4. They got an extra win this year, 4-8. They improved in conference play, 4-3-24. They were looked at coming in as 13 ranked, middle of the pack, that second set of 7 teams. They fall back. We know now that the coach was dismissed, and we see who is the heir apparent, Mike Vick. But this is interesting when you look at that. So let's stop it right here for a little bit and look at these 7. You can go down further down there, and they will give you the list if you get all the way down to the bottom and look at those 7, or we can just talk about them. Let's do that as you kind of look at it in terms of those bottom 7, 21 through 15. Charles, what are your first thoughts? What kind of jumps out at you in terms of now you get to go back a little bit? That was then. This is now. What are your thoughts in terms of what stands out to you at 21 through 15 in terms of this is what the preseason looked at? And now, Drew, you can go to the next one. We'll talk about the postseason numbers that were there. That's the next slide.
I think sometimes, Doc, when you take a look at it on paper, and just let me tell you, the first thought that came across my head was 2015, 2016, 2017. Never would I have ever thought North Carolina A&T would be somewhere amidst Valley, down at the bottom of the rankings, and that really just kind of blew me away for a quick second. That's tough to digest. But I think you touched on it. I think the one that had the biggest fall that was rather surprising was Howard, especially when you take a look at Howard being in the Celebration Bowl last year and them kind of falling back to that third tier this year. That was that was a real surprise because if anything, we saw Howard as a program that was on the rise. So that one really jumps out with regards to sort of the step back that they took this year. I know going into this season, we thought that Norfolk was going to, sort of make a statement, if you will, but they took a step back and now they have a new head coach. So those are the programs that kind of jump out for me in terms of, I thought, in terms of where they finished, I just did not envision them finishing in that third tier this past season.
Good stuff. AD Drew, your thoughts?
As I realized, I accidentally had the original bottom 15, with 15 below slide, and I take a look at what the preseason projections was. I see 3 of the 7 in this preseason projection that wound up, well, 4 of the 7 that still wound up there.
Right.
Just kind of interesting. Of the bottom 4 teams, I hate to say it, Valley had the best win of the bottom 4 teams.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
I hate to say it. Biggest disappointment in this group has to be Howard coming in as the defending MEAC champion. Not only were they the defending MEAC champion, but they had not 1 but 2 of the preseason players of the year in the MEAC. They had both the offensive and the defensive preseason player of the year in the MEAC, and won sum total squad this season.
Ooh,
So
that's a good point.
Yeah. Bethune played with one hand tied behind their back for a couple of weeks with the hurricanes that came through. Came through that area, but that actually led to one of their 2 victories. And I think I predicted that when it happened. I was like, this group has been on the road too long. They've had to tie the bond. They got everything that's going on, those outside distractions. This is where the team comes together, and they did come together and got their first victory of the season. I believe that was, who was that, A&M or UAPB they beat? I don't remember who they beat in that particular game, but I do remember them picking up their first win.
I think it's UAPB.
Yeah, it was UAPB. Norfolk. Enough said about Norfolk. The past no longer exists for Norfolk. Everybody is looking to the future with MV7 at Norfolk. So if that's the one benefit out of this for some HBCU fans, is that MV7 is getting ready to take over. And let's say it, Dr. Cavil, he has nowhere to go but one direction because it can't get any worse.
Right.
Doc, let me ask this question. Was Clark knocking off Bethune-Cookman the biggest upset this season?
Oh, I think without a doubt. Great question. I think when you talk about where Clark was in terms of in people's mind, even though we had an early inclination that they would be solid, but the fact to get it done on the road, the way they did it coming from behind against Bethune-Cookman, I think easily for most folks is the upset of the year. Some people would make the argument Mississippi Valley State over FAMU.
Yeah.
But I would still lean towards Clark Atlanta with old Coach Teddy Keaton.
I got to disagree with you on that one, Dr. Cavil. Valley over FAMU, or winless Valley.
Somebody would argue.
Over FAMU at home with a 24-game winning streak trumps the D2 beat the D1. We've seen D2s beat D1s.
Yeah,
that Clark Atlanta team we knew was a good team, and Clark Atlanta came in with, be for real, everybody. We knew Clark Atlanta came in with more than a puncher's chance to beat Bethune. Mississippi Valley pulled the Buster Douglas against FAMU on that particular day, So at least Clark Atlanta did the rope-a-dope Ali and Foreman, but that was a pure Buster Douglas on that victory.
Who was the team that knocked off Johnson C. Smith?
Say it again.
Who was the team that knocked off Johnson C. Smith? They were undefeated
They lost their last 2 games. So the first one was Fayetteville State,
Yeah, Fayetteville State. I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
That was up in the pantheon of big upsets for me.
Yeah,
too,
I think that was a big one, particularly at the time in the way that Johnson C. Smith was playing.
Yeah.
With that being said, of these teams, before we take the next break, Delaware State, North Carolina A&T, Mississippi Valley, and Norfolk State will all have new coaches coming into the season next year. With that being said, we'll take our next break and come back on the other side, and we'll talk about the next 7.
Tickets are on sale now for the 4th annual NBA HBCU Classic presented by AT&T, featuring Morehouse College and Tuskegee University. Don't miss this action-packed event happening at NBA All-Star 2025 and filled with competitive matchup and marching band performances celebrating HBCU pride. See you in the Bay.
Compress the analytic data with your hip-hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Let's get into this next 7. We got 14 through 8. With that being said, when you look at the 14th team coming here with preseason, it's fascinating to look of how that went down. We have the Hampton Pirates. They always start out really well, but then they get into the colonial play, and it doesn't go that well. Although this year, with the new head coach who just started, they actually had several games where they played really competitive, had some leads in those games, and just could not hold on. With that being said, they were predicted to come in at 16, so they played out and played that a little better in terms of where they end up ranking. So they were outside of the second and end up finding a way to get into that second tier, if you would. They were 5-6, 3-5 overall, 5-7 this year with the added game, and actually lost a game in terms of conference play as they failed to 2-6 this year, getting us to number 13. Number 13 in the matchup is none other than Grambling State Tigers. They were 5-6 last year. They only failed one spot. They came in 12. Even though some people thought they may have something, I wasn't too comfortable with what was going on. And they lived up to it, 5-6, 4-4. Oddly enough, they really played really well in non-conference play. They have a win against Jackson State, National Black College Champion. The game was at home, forced a lot of turnovers, which kind of set the stage for it. Mm-hmm. Did not count in the conference race, which is where they really had a lot of problems. They failed to 2-6 in conference play. So it was one of those weird dichotomies of the season. They went into conference play probably with a lot of expectation based on what they did in non-conference, but it was not to be. Bringing us to number 12. When we look at number 12, we get into Prairie View and the Panthers. 6-6 last year. Played for the championship game against FAMU. They did lose 6-2. And they had one of those fall as well, just 5-7 overall in 2024. But more so, they were 3-5 in conference play. Had a couple of tough losses, close losses, but couldn't get over the hump. Predicted to come in the season at second tier, but right outside of the first tier, they fell clearly in the middle of that to number 12. And they're one of those teams, much like the bottom third, based on expectation, contracts, things of that nature, they will have a new coach coming into the season. Bringing us to number 11. At number 11, you have Texas Southern Tigers. 3-8, 2-6. Oddly enough, had the same record this year, 3-8, 2-6. But people, for the most part, saw this as improvement. They came in looking in their third tier, clearly in the second tier, improved 6 spots. Interesting what you all ultimately say about this. Let's get into number 10. Number 10, you have Alabama A&M Bulldogs, 5-6, 3-5 last year. 6-6, a little better in conference play at 4-4. Basically in the spot everybody thought coming in here. Number 9 in terms of the ranking. Fell a spot, if you would. This is another program where you have a coach that will be having a new coach coming into the season. So you see in those third tier spots is really incumbent with a lot of changes, and you see even some in the tier 2. With that, let's get into number 9 as we start to round out this 7 in the second tier. Alcorn State Braves, 7-4, much like Prairie View, where they tied at the top of the conference, but head to head did not work in their favor. 6, 5-3 this year. Same thing, they were 10, so right in the number spot. Last one of this tier 2 group is number 8. At number 8, you have Morgan State Bears. They were predicted to be in that first tier, so they slid just a little bit just outside of that. 4-6 last year. They did improve in terms of overall record. Got to 500. Conference record is the same in 2024 versus what they did in 2023. So with that being said, let's look at the breakdown in terms of preseason and then postseason. Again, I'll start with you, Charles, as we get prepared to show everybody those 7 teams in this sphere. Let you talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
That is the preseason rankings where you see Prairie View all the way down to Bethune-Cookman.
Yeah.
Those teams that were there, and then we'll get into the postseason where they actually rank. Now, what are your thoughts in terms of this group? Anything stand out to you?
Yeah, first let me shout out my guy Jim Williams. He's checking in tonight, watching the show. My guy pledged me back in the day, so I want to shout out Jim.
Shout out, brother.
Yeah, let me. This is kind of the head scratcher group here, because especially when you take a look at a team like Prairie View, they had played for SWAC championships, and you figured they would be right there in the mix again. For them to kind of slide back, that was a bit of a surprise. And conversely, I think Texas Southern head scratchers showed improvement. When you take a look at what they were doing, they were able to get back to 500 in conference play, big wins over Grambling at home, Bethune-Cookman, and, you know, by all accounts, they had Southern right there on the ropes and was about to get the 3 count on them, and some type way Southern got up off the ropes. But that would have been a huge win. So Texas Southern showed marked improvement. But again, the head scratcher again is Alabama A&M. They weren't able to take that next step in terms of competing for the SWAC East, losing to Jackson State and FAMU. And then you kind of have to say kind of a head scratcher for Alcorn, because a lot of us in the preseason thought that Alcorn could be one of those teams that people were chasing in the SWAC West. So they kind of took a step back this year. And then what can you say about Morgan State and their offense? They still haven't gotten their offense on track. So they were a bit of a disappointment again.
Good points. Good points. AD Drew?
It's interesting when you look at this. 6 of the 7 on the screen right now had one main issue that sums up their season. Quarterback play.
Yep.
I think Alabama A&M may have been the only one who really did not have significant issues at the quarterback position, which is why they were mediocre. Hampton very easily should have their record flipped at 7-5, because I know there were 2 games that they should have won, possibly 3, based on the score. What a difference this season could have been had Texas Southern not failed in front of Charles's eyes in that game against Southern.
Yeah.
You know, would we have had a different season when it came to, because if Southern loses that game, and then was it 1 week later, 2 weeks later when they faced Alcorn?
I think it was a week later or 2 weeks later.
Right.
Maybe.
I think the momentum of that game totally changes.
It did.
If Southern comes into that game with a loss instead of the confidence that they had against Alcorn. I mean, Alcorn is probably the biggest disappointment here, because we thought Alcorn had their quarterback problem solved with Xavier Vaughn, Tyler Bacon. You knew one of them was going to take it. Tyler Bacon, once again, got some nicks and bruises, which allowed Vaughn to take it over. They moved, but Tyler Bacon was so good, they came up with packages and had to figure out how to get him into the game. Grambling beat SWAC competition at the wrong time. It don't matter what you win until the last 8 games. I need you to win the last 8 SWAC games, not the first 2 that don't count. Bad timing on Grambling's portion. And then Morgan State, one of the best defenses out there, but once again, nobody spent the ball for them.
Good stuff. Good stuff. We're going to let you be able to answer that question because we're going to take a break and come back and look at the last 7. And then we'll call it a show. Last 7, we know what those are, but I want to take everybody back to where they were and see how much of the last 7 matches up with the first 7 that we started the season with. We'll take our last break and come back on the other side and look at just that.
At Automasters LLC, our mission is to serve our community by providing quality automobiles at affordable prices. All of our vehicles are inspected and certified to offer you the confidence in knowing you have a quality vehicle. Our goal is to provide you with a seamless process and positive experience for your automobile purchase. Financing recommendations and specific vehicle inquiries are available at your request. You can find us at www.automasters06.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Also, please feel free to contact Terrence Miles at 601-927-7794. And oh yeah, tell him Sonia sent you.
Morehouse College and Tuskegee University men's basketball teams were selected to compete in the 2025 NBA HBCU Classic presented by AT&T. The 4th annual NBA HBCU Classic will be played in the Bay Area as part of NBA All-Star 2025 and will once again celebrate the rich traditions, on-court athleticism, and commitment to excellence of the HBCU community. For tickets, visit nba.com/all-star.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Ville inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Charles Bishop and A.D. Drew. 2 teams dropped out of the top 7 that we said started there. One of them is pretty obvious that we discussed with Howard. The other one, maybe not so much. We talked about a little bit of Morgan State, but let's find out who those 7 are and say it again in terms of those teams that were able to get in the top 7 and see what your thoughts are in terms of this last group of the 7. Starting with 7, we had Southern Jaguars as we get them broken down in terms of what they did last year, which are huge improvement, 6-5, 5-3. They ultimately jettisoned the coach. Some of it was because of the record, but a lot of it was just behind the scenes in terms of it not working out. Major improvement in multiple ways in the division race where they improved to 7-1 versus being at 5-3, which also meant overall record. They went to 8-5. It was good enough for them to win the Western Division and play who would be ultimately the National Black College champion of 2024. Their rival in Jackson State, they had to go on the road and do it. And while it was interesting for a half, not so much in the second half. So Southern has a huge lead, 8 spots, predicted to be 15 in terms of that 3rd-tier group. And they vaulted all the way up to the 1st-tier group. With a new coach, it'll be interesting to see with Terrence Graves. Can he keep that momentum moving forward? We shall see. At number 6, we have none other than Alabama State Hornets. This one's interesting to me because they were predicted at 5 to be in there. Fell a slight spot. And while for a lot of folks, in some ways, it's probably a disappointing season, they're right at the same mark, 7-4 last year, 5-3 in conference play, 7-5, 5-3, 2 of those losses to Eastern Division teams, the front runners, last 2 champions, FAMU and Jackson State. But they did this with ultimately a fifth-string quarterback, which I think a lot of people forget. With that being said, I thought that was fascinating work there. To be able to stay in the top 7, it'd be interesting to see, can they get that taken care of, much like Morgan State, in terms of the offensive side of the ball. Can they maintain or get better on the defensive side of the ball? Fascinating to see. Conference schedule may get a little tougher. With that being said, fascinating work. Let's get into number 5. As we get into number 5, we have Florida A&M, the Rattlers. Obviously, it's hard to get much better than a National Black College Championship, right? Do-over, which is what they expect on the hills, highest of 7 hills, they like to say around that part. The Rattlers were 12-1, 8-0 last year. They fell to 7-3, 5-3, 2024. Had a tough road loss to Prairie View. Quarterback gets hurt in that game, so I'm not sure you feel some type of solace in that. Obviously concerned because it looked like it took them out of the race. But then they go home and get the loss, as Charles said, as A.D. Drew said, the upset of the year. Some arguments made back and forth there. Predicted to come in at second, but they fall to 5. So they're still in the top third in a lot of ways, but probably a disappointing season for most, which is fascinating when you talk about some of those programs that are in the second and third tier, what it means to be disappointed and still be top. At number 4, as we get into number 4, we look at probably the biggest jump, most surprise to most folks in a lot of ways. Tennessee State Tigers, they went from 6-5, 2-4 last year. They were predicted to start the year. I saw them at number 11. They proved to 9-4 this year, 6-2 in conference race. More important because that 6-2 record gave them a 4-way share of the OVC Big South. And they were able to get an at-large bid to the playoffs where they faced Montana. Had somewhat of success here and there throughout that game, but ultimately fell in the cold up there in Montana on the north side of the country, West Coast side, if you would. Bringing us to number 3. At number 3, you have none other than North Carolina Central Eagles. They were predicted to come out number 1. Slightly behind that, 9-3, 4-1 is what they were last year. Duplicated that record in a lot of ways this year, 8-3, 4-1, 2024. Teams just did much better than them this year. And even though they had quarterback that was in the stable first year that he played, the Walker quarterback there, kid. But number 3. At number 2 then. Number 2 is none other than South Carolina State, 5-6, 3-2. Huge jump, 9-3, 5-0 in conference race. Surprised some people, probably a couple of people, in terms of just how much they jumped. Not that people didn't think they would improve. Predicted to be in the top 7, though, so they stayed in the 3rd. So saw a little bit of that coming, but just how well they played may have surprised some, all the way up to number 2, playing for the championship game, ranked top 20 in the country, in the top 25 FCS polls. Number 2 here now. At number 1, Jackson State Tigers. Charles, don't get too excited on them. 7-4, 5-3, 12-2. Talking about a major jump in terms of their schedule and wins. Ultimately winning the Celebration Bowl in dominating fashion. They were picked preseason to be in the mix now. They were number 3. But they really get it done by finding a way to be number 1. And again, earning the 2024 HBCU Major Division Champion. With that being said, let's get into it. Go with you, Charles, and we'll prepare and let A.D. Drew kind of take us out.
Sure. I mean, let's go with the major jumpers. I think you take a look at the Southern Jaguars winning the SWAC West. Preseason, we look at them at 15. They jump all the way to 7. Kudos to Southern for getting it done. And when that momentum started to get going, they were able to really take care of things over there in the SWAC West. Alabama State, unfortunately, they're running in place. And they're playing in the same division with the past 2 HBCU national champions. So it's tough for them, especially when you take a look at so many expectations coming in this season for Alabama State. That's a championship level defense, but offensively they couldn't get things done. Like you said, a lot of injuries at quarterback, and we talk about it all the time in the SWAC. You got to have that signal caller to really get things up and going. Disappointing season, I think, for FAMU. Go from Black College National Champions to losing 5 games, a loss on the road to Prairie View, and of course the clunker versus Mississippi Valley State. Kudos to Tennessee State. Normally we've seen them fade out in October, but they were able to hold that momentum, get a share of the OVC championship this year. So kudos to them. I think it has to be a disappointment for North Carolina Central. The one game for the second year that they've got to have, they weren't able to get it done. They finished second to South Carolina State. So you take your hat off to the South Carolina State Bulldogs. For Chennis Berry in year one to take them to the Celebration Bowl, that was huge. And then you can't say enough about what TC has done at Jackson State. He talked about it. He built the foundation, built that roster, and in year two, they're Black College National Champions.
Good stuff. AD Drew.
I'm going to start from the bottom up, start at Southern. Terrence Graves, congratulations on a fantastic first season. Unfortunately, you have nowhere to go but down. I hope this is not one of those situations where you win your first year, fans have unrealistic expectations because you had so much success your first year. And then, he's 7-1 this year. If he goes 6-2 next year and doesn't win the West, are people going to be disappointed? Or let's take that even one step further. He goes 6-2, but still wins the West. Are people going to talk trash? So, I wish Terrence Graves a TC Taylor-like success in year two. No offense, y'all. Alabama State, what could have been? What could have been had Alabama State not gone through as many quarterbacks as their ranking, it seemed like.
Right.
Because they had about 5-6 quarterbacks. They finished number 6. If Alabama State could have either one of those quarterbacks who played in the Orange Blossom Classic had played a majority of the season, this is a totally different story we're talking about with Alabama State. So we'll see that one right here.
Maybe.
FAMU, the good thing for FAMU, James Colsey did not have a Terrence Graves type season, so he has room for improvement. But when you're the defending national champion, that's not acceptable. So pressure will be on James Colsey this upcoming season. Eddie George went to the zoo, left the monkey at the zoo while he was in the Nashville Zoo this season because he got the monkey off of his back by getting a share of that OVC crown. Charles hit it on the head. 2 games, 2 years, Central winds up in second place once again. Kudos to Chennis Berry. Chennis Berry has not lost a conference game in 3.5 seasons. Oh my God!
That is
8 in a row. If you count the SIC championship games, he won 9 in 23. What were you? 9 and 22. He won 9 in a row in 23. He won his last 3 in a row in 21. So that puts us at 21 right there. Plus he won 5 in a row here. That's 26 consecutive conference games for Chennis Berry. Kudos. But hey, all hail the mighty champions, Jackson State. Gotta love the TC Taylor story. Whether you're a Jackson fan, lover or hater, because we know Jackson State draws a ire out of everybody. Either they love them or they hate them. But whichever side of that pitch you fall on, you have to give your respect to TC Taylor for vanishing the ghost of the past and doing it his way to get Jackson State over the top.
good stuff by both of you. Thank you for allowing me to go back in the time machine and coming forward and see what it all looked like as we go way early. Obviously, man, that Southern Heritage Classic with the traditional matchup would be interesting coming the season. Obviously, you got to see about who's coming back, transfer portals and all that. But right now, essentially, go ahead and pull it back up real quick. Drew, if you would, that last one. I want to play with this a little bit. You're talking about a 1-4 type matchup. Top 25 teams maybe coming in at the FCS level. Probably top 7 teams with most people rankings. It'd be interesting to see what that looks like. And then, obviously, the Eastern Division. is continue going to be tough to look at. You got a Jackson State matchup with FAMU that you can look forward to. This year, Jackson State has to go to Tallahassee. Will be interesting. Alabama State has to go to Tallahassee, and Alabama State has to go to Jackson State in terms of those three teams, in terms of the top 7, not to mention these other teams that we're bringing in coaches in terms of Alabama A&M and Mississippi Valley State for that matter. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what that looks like. So I'm fascinating in terms of that. Obviously, the Southern Jackson State, that comes back to a conference game next year, right? In terms of the schedule.
Yeah, it should. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
These last 2 years they rotated off, but this year it comes back. So that all of a sudden becomes an intriguing matchup in terms of conference play, and it's in Baton Rouge. It's on the bluff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a fascinating type of look. And obviously that South Carolina, North Carolina, Central, South Carolina State, in terms of this year coming up, South Carolina State will have to travel to North Carolina Central. Does the schedule align itself? Can Central, as it continues to have a momentum, it's going to be in the race. You got to figure that. But can they not have that game that cost them a trip to the celebration?
Don't forget Hampton kicks off things against Jackson State as well. So that's another one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, top 10 type matchup. 80 Drew, tell us any update from there that you want to share with us and your final thoughts.
I'm looking forward to that. It's not over, but I believe it's A&T and Tennessee State. I'm looking forward to that matchup next year. That's on the books. I believe that's week 1.
Especially with a new coach at A&T, Sean Gibbs comes in there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. But here's another one that I'm looking forward to that's rotated on the books for the next 2 years. FAMU and Alcorn. I am really looking forward to that one. You know, I have
top 10 matchup
of number 9 coming into Bragg in about 93, 94, one of those years, and just putting it on.
Real smooth, AD Drew.
Yeah, put it on FAMU. Matter of fact, that may be one of the reasons why Ken Riley became athletic director at FAMU, because of what number 9 did to him.
Yes, sir.
When he was coaching.
Aaron McNair, baby.
Aaron McNair, great points. Nice timing.
It's amazing. I don't even have to say who he is. All I gotta do is say number 9 for Alcorn. Everybody know who I'm talking about.
That's right.
That's when you know you're a legend right there.
Indeed.
But yeah, that's another one that I am really looking forward to. That's going to be rotating onto the schedule next year. I don't know where the game is being played at the first year off the top of my head, but I am definitely looking forward to that one. In addition to what we have in the East. I mean, the East is there. Here's the question: will the West finally take over?
Right. Please. Somebody in the West, please stand up. Or the West in general, please stand up.
If we think about it, Dr. Cavil, the East has won, I want to say 8 of the last 10 SWAC championships.
Yeah.
Grambling is the only team that got in there. 2 years. Was it 2 in a row, or did Alcorn split that when Alcorn was in the East? Those Grambling titles. I can't remember off the top of my head.
No, Alcorn was still in the East when they won.
No, I'm talking about it, but I know Grambling was too, but I can't remember whether they were consecutive or whether Alcorn split those two. I'm going off the top of my head. Those two that
Grambling won those 2.
They was 2 in a row.
2016, 2017.
Okay, it was 2 consecutive, and then Alcorn bookended that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Alcorn won 2
in the front and 2 in the back. That's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting is when you start looking at the Celebration Bowl, in terms of 3 straight games by the SWAC, in terms of winning, and even more intriguing is the MEAC SWAC Challenge. When you talk about the fact that you have 5 of the last 7, matchups in terms of what's going on, and you can stretch it back when they play the home, and it even gets a little lopsided. So is that tug of war starting to shift, and it'll be interesting to see what that looks like in terms of that nature. Just got an update from John Grant, and I'll brought this out here in terms of what that looks like, broke it down. I sent some stuff out in terms of the viewership, but he has year over date included in these matchups. The Celebration Bowl on ABC Saturday, noon average, a 2.1 viewers. We've heard about that, 37% year over date. When you compare it to the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs, since there's some people that won't do that out there. 3 FCS quarterfinals games across ABC and ESPN1 averaged 1.1 million viewers, down a negative 12 year over date. That included Mercer's Dakota State, North Dakota State. ABC registered 1.4 viewers. It was up 32% alone through the quarterfinals. FCS playoffs on ESPN have collected 776 unique viewers. It's a -2 year over date and amassed 79 million minutes, which is down 19% year over year. So just to give you some numbers for those that like to compare that information for whatever reason, those are some things out there to kind of close out the season as we get ready to celebrate the holidays. For those that do, we'll decide and let you know if we're going to do something on Tuesday. It depends on people's travel schedule and what it looks like. We'll see, certainly maybe doing something the day after Christmas on Thursday, get you prepared as we close out the year with New Year's. But with that being said, I know I'll talk with y'all in the banner or whatever, but I want to say in front of everybody, happy holidays to all of us. Merry Christmas.
Y'all didn't hear that, did y'all?
Yeah, no. Happy Kwanzaa. With that being said, AD Drew, I know you want to get one final point out there. Please do.
I'm trying to get my ears back. They just turned on the sound system and just made everybody deaf up in here. But I hope we do get opportunity to go Tuesday, because we'll have some time to react to the ruling that may make junior college players eligible. You know, there's a lot of questions out there about that. But and I know we've been chatting back and forth all day in our chat group, but we stayed away from it because we really haven't had the time to take a deep dive into this people out there, because this came down late yesterday. But given the weekend, we have some time to take a dive into it and start formulating some opinions and some questions on that.
I look forward to hearing that for sure. One last one that I have to get out there. I promise we'll close it here. This one is also a top 7 matchup to open up the season for the major division, which should be a top 7 matchup. Currently would be 2 versus 7, Southern of the SWAC and North Carolina Central of the MEAC for the SWAC Challenge. SWAC MEAC Challenge in 2025 should be fascinating. With that, I promise that's it. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Can never talk enough football, but it is time to start turning the page to basketball and see what happens as we're right around the corner from the conference season starting for both MEAC, SWAC. We're in it for the SIAC and CIAA. I am Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, again, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, and AD Drew. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock. That'll do it for this week. So have a great weekend. Happy holidays again. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, these two gentlemen as well on Facebook, Instagram, Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, on Facebook and YouTube. Dream big, continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
AD Drew?
He muted.
Yeah.
My bad. Lecture had to do though.
He was trying to get it off. He knew. He just couldn't get there fast enough. This Smith,